All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I am Josh Pass, president of the Currituck Chamber of Commerce. The Currituck Chamber of Commerce is a nonpartisan business membership organization, and we neither support nor oppose any candidate or political party. This Zoom meeting today is an effort to inform our members and the public, and this Zoom will be recorded and shared on social media after this. Both candidates for the Moyock Board of Education seat have been invited, but only Mary Suman has been available to join us, but Dwan Kraft did send an introductory statement I'll read shortly. So if anybody has questions, it's on the phone, please send it via private message. And Ms. Suman, thank you for joining us this morning.
So thank you so much for having me this morning.
Thank you. If you'd like to give an introduction, I'll let you go ahead and then I'll read Dwan's.
Sure. My name is Mary Suman, and I am a write-in candidate for the Moyock Township Board of Education seat. I'll give you a little bit of background. First of all, I do want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you guys this morning. I know not a lot of people are able to attend in person. This is an incredibly busy time of year, so I'm hoping a lot of people will be able to watch this on social media afterwards. And if they think of any questions, should certainly feel free to reach out to me if I can answer any of those. I will tell you that running for office is challenging in general. It's definitely a heavier lift when you're running as a write-in candidate because my name will not appear on the ballot. So we're trying to get my name out there to make sure people know that they need to fill in the bubble and write my name under that Board of Education for Moyock Township. So as for background, I will tell you that I've lived here in Currituck for just about 20 years. I moved here full-time in the summer of 2001. And then moved into my home here in Eagle Creek once it was finished being built in January of 2002. I have two children. They were born here. They both have attended Currituck County Schools since they were in kindergarten. My daughter is now a sophomore at CCHS, and my son is a junior at CCHS. I have been a longtime volunteer in our school systems, including serving in several roles in the PTA at Moyock Elementary School. I have joked that if you have a kid between the ages of about 12 and 18 and you live in the northern half of the county, there's a very good chance that I have probably coached them in some rec sport or another at some point along the way. And last season, I had the opportunity to be the head basketball coach, the girls basketball coach at Moyock Middle School. I am running for this position because I see so much unmet potential in our students and our teachers in this county. And I think we need change and leadership to see that potential realized. My expectation is to bring transparency and accountability and credibility to the Board of Education. I want to collaborate with our Currituck County Schools professional staff as well as our county leadership to help to reach that potential. And I'm looking forward to trying to find creative ways to solve problems and increase the opportunities for our students and our staff.
All right. Well, thank you again for being with us this morning. And I have an introduction from Ms. Dwan Kraft. I'll read that, then I'll take my video off, and then we'll go into some questions. So this is from Dwan Kraft, also candidate for the Moyock seat. Hi, my name is Dwan Gibbs Kraft. I'm so sorry I could not be on the Zoom meeting this morning. I'm having a medical procedure done this morning. I was born and raised in Currituck until I went to high school. My family moved to Florida at that time. I moved back home to Currituck in 1980. I retired from Currituck County Schools 10 years ago. I was blessed to teach at Moyock Elementary School for over 20 years. My main reason for running for the Board of Education 8 years ago was to give back to my community. I feel the same way today as I did then. We have great schools and wonderful teachers and staff. I ask for your vote either during early voting or at the polls on November 3rd. Thank you. So that is the introductory statement from Ms. Kraft. So let me get my video off so the focus is on the candidate, Ms. Suman. All right, first question, Ms. Suman. There has been a high turnover in administration and faculty in the schools. Is there any way to better support school staff?
So I think that is a great point, and one that I've been talking about as I talk to folks, and to kind of put some, so one of the things that you'll find about me is I find it very helpful to put context around things so people understand. So when you say something like high turnover, I think it's really important for people to understand what that means. And so and all the information I'll share with you today is publicly available on the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction site. So you can certainly Google any of that information to verify it and to check out and research it for yourself. So to put some context around what you're talking about right there is, in the most recent statistics available, Currituck County has a 40% turnover rate for our administrators in our schools. And the context for that is North Carolina statewide, that average is less than 10%. So that is really significant. And so, obviously, I think we have to find a way to better support our teachers and administrators. I think a little bit of it is a trickle-down effect. Anybody who has ever worked in a situation where they have a constant change in their supervisors and a constant change in management knows how difficult and disruptive that is, because every new manager has their own way of doing things. They have their own reports they want or systems that they want to put in place. They have their different things that they want to touch. And so every time we change a principal or administration in the schools, that means that our teachers are having to learn new ways of doing things. They're having to adjust to new expectations. That's very difficult. That's very hard on morale. So that is not to say that we only focus on principals, but I think that's one of the areas we have to start on, because that's where we're seeing this enormous turnover. Now, some of it I do think is unavoidable. I think, I know that we've had some turnover because we've had principals who've had personal issues that they've had to address and can no longer be in the schools. But I think there's some that has been absolutely avoidable. I think if we find that we have a principal that we feel is not measuring up to expectations, that we have an obligation to sort of set that corrective action plan into place and to figure out how we want to address that and give that person the opportunity to right the ship. So yes, I think we need to have those conversations, find out how we can better support those teachers, support those principals. Let's stop that turnover rate. Let's get some stability, because I think that is what builds the longevity in the rest of our staff, is having that predictability, having that stability.
All right, thank you for that answer. Next question is, there has been tremendous growth in the county, especially in the northern end of the county, which the seat would represent. What should the school system do, or have you seen them do, to plan adequately for this growth?
So this, again, is another major challenge and something that I've talked to a lot of folks about. And again, so building that context around it. So our schools have gained about 215 students over the last 5 years. And again, context, make sure everybody understands that. That is greater than the population of Central Elementary School. So in the past 5 years, we've had as many students come in here, or more actually, than would fit in Central Elementary School right now, or that we have in Central Elementary School right now. 85% of that, 85 of those students, which is 40% of that number of growth, have landed, it came in 1 year, right? They came between 2017 and 18 and the 18-19 school year. And so 30% of that increase landed in 2 schools, Moyock Elementary and Moyock Middle School. That's an enormous increase for those schools to take on that impacts class sizes. And I think part of the challenge we have right now has been around trying to get accurate numbers. We've seen a ton of growth in terms of building and homes coming into the northern part of the county. And I don't think that our decision makers have been given accurate numbers upon which to make their information. I stopped short of saying I think that they were flat out wrong with approving these things, because I think you can only work with the information that you're given. So I think this goes to that demanding accountability and transparency. And when something doesn't seem right, we need to raise our hand and say that doesn't seem right. And by that, I mean, we're seeing a ton of single family homes that got built in Moyock, into those schools that are feeding into Moyock Elementary, Moyock Middle School, and Shawboro Elementary, a ton of single family homes. And then we end up surprised when our schools start to get inundated with children. And it seems to me the logical conclusion there would be you're building single family homes. People are probably coming with families. These children need someplace to go. And it just doesn't seem like the numbers add up. And I think that's where we have to be willing to stand up and say, I don't think these numbers that you're sharing with us, and I don't think these numbers that you're sharing with our Board of Commissioners are accurate. Can you go back and do it again? Can you show us how you're arriving at these numbers? As many people are aware of, a growth study from 10 years ago has recently reemerged. And even that, we know, and in fact, the quote around that was, those missed growth projections by quite a bit. And so now we're in this situation where we have at least 2 schools and arguably 3 schools in the northern part of the county that are bursting at the seams with students. And now we've got to figure out how to band-aid that situation until we can build new schools.
Right. Thank you for that answer. Not all Currituck schools are accredited. Some are working on it, and there's been some debate in the Board of Education about accreditation. Do you support the schools becoming accredited schools?
I absolutely support the schools becoming accredited schools for a couple of reasons. So keeping it limited to just the schools, the main reason that I support the accreditation is because that ensures schools meet and maintain a certain standard of not only academic rigor and integrity, but also administration and other services. So, I definitely, from the academic sense, absolutely agree with accreditation. Also, keeping it in the academic sense, we do have one accredited school, and that is JP Knapp. I think it is not a coincidence that JP Knapp is also the only school we have in the county that has received an A rating on our report card from the state. So, I think with that academic rigor, obviously we see that comes the better quality of school. And obviously we have schools that can live up to that. So this is what I talked about with the unmet potential. I think there's the potential for all of our schools to be able to live up to that. Now, taking it outside of the schools and putting this squarely on well, I don't have kids that are in the schools, or I don't have kids at all, why should I care? The other reason that I support accreditation is because accreditation has been shown with those higher standards to increase property values, right? So there's one study in Florida that was done a couple of years ago, and they're also a state that at the time was using the ABCD rating as far as how schools go. And when the first year of that rating that went in with accreditation and with those higher standards, you saw about a $10,000 difference between schools that were rated A and schools that were rated B in terms of neighboring property values. And now, when you look at that difference, that has completely outpaced it. Schools that are rated, homes in the A-rated neighborhoods are anywhere from $50,000 to $300,000 more. The property value has increased than the houses in the B neighborhood. So it's more than just it's a schools thing. I think it's important for us to have that for schools, but I think it's also important for the community for us to be able to do that and to give our students opportunities. I mean, there are scholarships that some of our students will not be eligible for because they're not coming from an accredited school. And I talked to a parent just the other day who has a daughter who is an athlete. She's being looked at by an Ivy League school. And this family is really sweating whether she's going to end up getting that opportunity because, all other things being equal, she is competing with kids who are from accredited schools, and she may lose that opportunity.
All right, so we do have a question, a follow-up question in the chat function, and I think you touched on this, but more in depth. What do you think has delayed or prevented accreditation?
I think there's a general lack of understanding about the value of accreditation. I think there's been sort of that narrow focus that is strictly on the academic portion of it, which in my opinion should be enough to push that forward. But even if taking it out that narrow focus, I think that's part of it. I think there's a cost involved. And I think anytime you start talking about costs, I mean, that starts to get people a little bit concerned and a little bit nervous. We are not a large district. We don't have a huge budget. But I think we have to stop looking at the cost of accreditation as an expense and look at that as an investment that will pay dividends down the road.
All right, thank you for that answer. Elected, you would take office in December rather. It's likely at that time and going into first part of next year that the COVID-19 crisis will still be going on. What are your plans to ensure student and staff safety in regards to COVID-19, especially with the special emphasis on transportation, playgrounds, cafeteria, and those types of facilities?
So we started to take, we've seen the county take some steps towards opening up right now. I think the first thing to kind of consider with all of this is that the school board does have limited powers here to be able to open things and do things exactly as they want. That as a county across North Carolina, everything is being dictated right now by the governor's office in terms of what is opening up and what we are allowed to do, and then how we meet those kinds of things. So I think any discussion about reopening has to be predicated with that conversation about, we have these limits that are set by the governor right now. That is number one. And then number two, among those limits, we have this playbook that they have given to us that we need to follow. And that includes, how many students you can put on a bus and that sort of thing. So I do think cost has to be a factor. It's not the only factor, but, I think the most recent, so at the beginning of this school year, when we were talking about, could we afford to do this? Could we do this in person? One of the deciding factors was the fact that it was, an enormous cost just to be able to run buses because of the restrictions that are in place for what we can do. I think the plan that the current school board has put in place is probably as good as we can get right now under those restrictions. And so I think you would continue forward with those kind of things. So with the limited seating on the buses, certainly the more extensive cleaning, the idea of those half days on Fridays to give time for more cleaning over the weekends. I would like to see the issue of barriers revisited. So the plexiglass barriers, I think we have some teachers who would feel much more comfortable if we could put those into place. But I understand that there are concerns about being able to use those and making sure that those are available to everyone and standardized. And of course, there's cost that comes with that. So I think we would definitely have to look into that as well.
All right, thank you, sir. Last question from us at the chamber. So again, if there's any other questions, please come into the chat function. The last question from the chamber: not all students are found. How can the education assist with vocational students, and what is the role of the Board of Education in vocation programming?
Can I get you to repeat the first part of that? I'm sorry, the audio cut
I'm sorry,
out.
I said
That's okay.
not students are college bound. How Board of Education assist with vocational students, and what's the role of the Board of Education in providing vocational education to students?
So this is one of those topics that I like talking about because I think, again, this goes to that unmet potential that I mentioned earlier, where I think we're in kind of this thought process of being an either or. And I would really like us to move that from an either or to an also and, right? So I think there's this notion that if we're an academically strong county, that we can't also be vocationally strong. And I disagree with that. And I think that we have a lot of opportunities that are similar to what we're doing on the academic track right now. You know, we have the dual enrollment where we have students who both high school and working with the College of the Albemarle. I would like to see, you know, can we expand those opportunities in terms of vocational training? Can we leverage that relationship with COA so that we have more of our vocational students able to maybe spend part of their day on our campuses and then perhaps spend part of their day on COA campuses earning those certifications so that when they graduate, they are ready immediately to go into their trade, either as a tradesperson or as an apprentice in that trade. You know, so I definitely think that I think the Board of Education has a role in trying to leverage and create those relationships that allow that to happen. I would also like to understand what we are doing as a board to lobby on the state level for having 2 tracks for a diploma. You know, right now we have kind of 1 track for a diploma in North Carolina, and that really is heavily weighted toward the college bound. We have a lot of students who we know are not college bound, don't choose to be college bound. So I think we need to find a way to have a 2nd track for a diploma that accommodates, you know, for those students who don't have that desire. But again, I think we need to understand that no people, and especially our students, are one thing or another. It's not impossible to imagine a student whose heart is set on you know, becoming a carpenter upon graduation. They can still be a carpenter who enjoys learning about and talking about Chaucer. There's no reason why we can't do both of these things and do them well.
All right. Thank you again for being with us this morning. This concludes our questions. In conclusion, you can give a closing statement, or if there's anything that you would like to cover that we haven't asked about, please feel free to do so now.
I just want to thank you, Noah, again for your time. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this and get the information out there. Again, I am a write-in candidate, so you will find the spot to vote for me on the back of your ballot under Board of Education, Moyock Township. There is a bubble and a blank line that says write in, so you'll need to both bubble in that bubble and then write Mary Suman on that blank line. And that's it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.